Hey guys, it's Nicole. Welcome back to another video, and today I have a haul for you. Specifically, I have a birthday haul. These are all the books I was very lucky to get for my birthday. My birthday wasn't actually recent, it was a couple months ago. It was in June, but I wanted to try and read all these books before I did a haul, but that's just not going to happen. I'm about to move and all my books have to go into boxes. Once I move, I'm not entirely sure when I would get a chance to film this video, so I thought I would just do it now, and I'm really excited to share all these books with you. I'm sorry if a couple of them I don't have a lot to say about them, because I do like to go into a lot of my books blind, but quite a few of these I have read, so I will be able to give you a pretty detailed synopsis. The first book I got was A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kammerer. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and we follow a girl called Harper, and she's actually from our world, and she is the beauty, but she gets taken into this parallel world, or this other world, and that is where the prince lives, and the sort of fairy tale or the story of Beauty and the Beast we know takes place. This prince has been cursed, but he isn't a beast the entire time like the original story. He slowly transforms into the beast. This prince character, who is Ren, is stuck in this cycle, sends his guard off to our world to collect a girl, and they bring a girl back, and the girl has to try and fall in love with him for him to break the curse. It was a modern and a very different take on the original Beauty and the Beast story. It really looked at how the curse affected the kingdom. The next book I got was The Poppy War, and this book is an Asian inspired fantasy. It follows a young girl called Rin, and Rin is a war orphan, and she was raised in this adopted family, and they do not treat her very kindly. In fact, they have plans to marry her off to a much older man. She does not want this destiny, so in order to avoid it, she studies and trains and takes this test to enlist into a military school. She surprises everyone when she gets the top grade and is accepted into the top school. As this book goes on, a lot more of the mythology and religion and kind of magical aspects come into play, and it's really great. I then got Ayan Gold by Pierce Brown. This book I cannot say too much about because it is the fourth book in a series and the first book in a sequel series. The first book of the series is called Red Rising. I don't know what Red Rising is about. It's basically a world where the class system is divided into colors, and reds are the lowest class and golds are the highest class. And it follows a boy who is a red, and he is transformed into a gold. It's about him working undercover amongst the golds and trying to cease the oppression of his people and change society. Ayan Gold takes place 10 years after the events of Morningstar, and I believe we follow some of the other characters who were in the original series. The next book I have, I really don't know much at all about, and that is The Orphanage of the Gods. I was really, first of all, drawn in by this cover. Second of all, I was really drawn in by the title, because Orphanage of the Gods, what does that mean? I want to know. This story takes place after a revolution where the gods were ruling the world, and they were all eliminated by the humans. Children that were left behind by the gods are left in a prison, and I believe it follows two siblings, and I think one of them escapes, or they both escape, and the two siblings, I think they're sisters, they get separated. I don't really want to know a whole lot. The next book I have has been all over BookTube recently, and that is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. It's set in a world where libraries basically kind of come alive, all the books in them do. The books have personality. There are different classes of books, and the higher the class, the more dangerous they are, and the more possibility these books have of turning into monsters. And the books in this world are called grimoires, so they are magical. We follow a girl by the name of Elizabeth, and she is an orphan, and she was left on the steps of a great library as a baby, and there she was raised, and now she is a young woman who is working as an apprentice in hopes of becoming a warden. And the wardens are tasked with basically keeping the grimoires under control and fighting them and protecting the society if they do come out of control. At the beginning of this story, Elizabeth is in the wrong place at the wrong time and is accused of having something to do with a grimoire turning into a monster that leads to the death of the director of this library. It's a really enchanting story, and I think it deserves all the hype it has been getting on BookTube. Next book I have is Witch Sign by Den Patrick. This book I also don't know a whole lot about, but I believe it follows a man who is tasked with finding these babies who are born with this witch sign, and it has something to do with the old rulers of the kingdom. I think they were dragons, or they had some kind of magical ability that allowed them to work with dragons. I'm really not too sure. I want to go into this blind. I read the synopsis when I first ordered it, and it sounded really interesting. I was then also gifted Heartless by Marissa Meyer. I have read the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I read them as they came out, so it's been actually quite a while since I've picked up any of her books, and I really want to get into her newer books. This book is a retelling of Alice in Wonderland with the focus of the Queen of Hearts. I really enjoy villain origin stories, and I don't think I've read a lot, but they really intrigued me. Next two books I got were part of a series, and I've also read both of these, and that is Truly Devious and The Vanishing, both by Maureen Johnson. These books follow a girl named Stevie, and she is accepted into this boarding school, which is a pretty elite and special boarding school. And what's special about it is that it is a school that focuses on the students' interests. So Stevie has a particular interest in detective work. The way the school is structured isn't the only reason Stevie chose this school. The school also has a mystery. In the 1930s, there were multiple murders that occurred at this school that to this day remained unsolved, and Stevie is determined to solve them because it's considered one of the greatest murder mysteries of all time. All about this book is we do have a dual narrative. We have one timeline that follows Stevie as she's going to the school. The second one, we follow the 1930s and the events. We also have like interviews and newspaper clippings of that time. The next book I haven't read, but I'm so excited to get to, and that is The Girl King. This is another Asian inspired fantasy, and I believe it follows two sisters. So already two things I love, because I love Asian inspired fantasies and I also love stories that follow siblings. One of the sisters is supposed to be the heir to the throne, but her father decides that he's going to make her male cousin the heir instead. I don't know too much more about this story, but I believe it follows the two sisters trying to rightfully reclaim the throne, and I think there's a war going on, and I'm not sure what else, but I'm really intrigued. I haven't heard anyone talk about this book either. Then got Eventual by V.E. Schwab, and this of course is the second book in the Vicious duology, and if you haven't heard of Vicious, I don't know how you've managed that. Vicious follows two college friends called Eli and Victor, and they basically start experimenting on themselves that gives them superpowers, and there is a dual timeline, and we follow them when they're in college and they're doing these experiments, and then we also follow Victor 10 years into the future, and you know things went kind of very wrong because Eli and Victor are no longer friends. In fact, they are enemies. This book follows the events directly after the first book, and I can't say anything more, really. Oh, there are new characters introduced. There are more female characters into this, and there are a lot more powers. Okay, the next book I don't know a thing about, and that is Foundry Side by Robert Jackson Bennett. I think this has to do with a spy or a thief. I just read the first line of the synopsis. I'm not going to go into any more, but it's not a spy. It follows a thief. That's all I know, and I've heard good things. And I want to go in blind, so I'm sorry I don't have a synopsis for you, but it sounds really cool. It's got a lot of praise. If you want to know more, I highly recommend that you check some reviews. Everyone has been singing this book praises. Next two books I got are also part of a duology. That is The Last Magician and The Devil's Thief, both by Lisa Maxwell. And these books follow a girl called Esther, and at the beginning of the first book, she travels back in time because that is her ability, or in this story they call abilities affinities. But to travel back in time, she has to use this artifact, and the artifact works with her ability and helps her locate or like pinpoint time. She's able to travel directly back into 1902 with the help of the artifact. When she travels back into 1902 though, the artifact is lost, and then she is stuck in 1902. The original reason she traveled back into 1902 was because there was a magical ancient kind of book that was in this time period that disappeared, and events from that really impacted the future, and so she is going back in time to change it, but she gets stuck there. It's a bit of a heist that goes on. So this organization known as the Order that is out to basically get rid of people like Esther, the main girl, who have affinities. The whole story takes place in New York, and all the people with affinities like Esther are actually stuck in New York because there's this thing known as the brink, and if you pass the brink you will lose your magical ability. You could possibly die. The next book I have is Middle Game by Shannon Maguire. This book, I've read it and it's really, really good. I don't even know what genre to put this book in. Like, it's kind of fantasy, it's kind of science fiction, it's kind of magical realism. It's set in our world, and we basically follow these two twins who were kind of scientifically made, and each twin is a genius, and the girl twin Dodger is a genius with mathematics. The boy twin Roger, he is a genius with work. They are separated at birth and raised in adopted families across the country. It's their story about growing up and being very outcasted because they are geniuses, and them dealing with that, but it's also about them growing up and becoming basically God. Characters are amazing, the story is amazing, the writing is incredible. Second to last book I got was The Queen's Rising by Rebecca Ross. This book is a story that follows a girl who is dropped off at this house known as Magnolia House when she is a young girl, dropped there by her grandfather. This house works in tutoring girls in what in this world they call passion. So passion is basically arts, is basically music, is wit. They raise them until they're about 17 years old, and then they have this thing known as the summer solstice where they are going to be taken off by patrons, and they basically get a job. There's a mystery going on with this girl's heritage. She doesn't know who her father is. It's also another kingdom where were queens and they were tied with dragons and magic, and that has all vanished, and that is going on in the foreground. This book I got is Nocturner, and I believe this book follows two characters. The first character is a thief, and this thief is tasked with stealing something from the palace. I'm not sure why. I don't think it's something this thief wants to do herself, but I think it's something she's blackmailed to do. And then we also follow a prince character who I'm guessing lives in this palace, and these two collide. I don't know anything else about this story, and I want to go in pretty blind. I was very, very spoiled. I loved a lot of the ones I've read already, and I'm so excited to get to the ones that I haven't. If there are any books that you want to ask more about, because I have read a few of these, and if you want to know more information or whether I would recommend them, leave a comment down below and I'm happy to chat with you about them. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you're enjoying whatever you're currently reading, and I'll see you next time. Bye!